It's all about question, is Beyoncé the greatest of all time that ever done it? Male or female, group or no group? Let's discuss.
Okay, let's go.
So the reason why we're coming up with this topic today is because obviously Beyoncé just set a record for the most Grammy wins at the 65th Grammy Awards this week. And let me just apologize already because I do have a bit of a cold.
I'm sick.
That's why there wasn't an episode last week. But she won the award for Best Album for Renaissance. The category was Best Dance/Electronic Album for the Renaissance album. But today's episode will be discussing quickly Beyonce's achievements in music, just to show or ask the question really whether she is possibly the greatest of all time.
That is the question.
So let's go through it. So she is the first woman in history to have 20 top 10 hits on the Billboard Hot 100 as a solo artist and 10 on chart as a member of a group, which is obviously with Destiny's Child. With her singles, her solo singles, obviously the biggest ones are like Single Ladies, Crazy in Love, and one of her latest song is Break My Heart, which actually hit number 1 as well. With Destiny's Child, some of her big songs with Survivor or Say My Name is just following the footsteps of just a few little names, Paul McCartney, Michael Jackson. She's in good company right there. With Destiny's Child, she's had 10 top 10 hits between 98 and 2005. So that's when Destiny's Child were running things with independent women anthems and crazy videos. 7 of her top 10 hits hit number 1 on the US Billboard charts. That's not just the R&B charts or the pop charts or hip hop charts. It was the Billboard charts. An example is Irreplaceable, that massive anthem, and Check Upon It with that was featuring Slim Thug in 2006. Her first actual Grammy award came with Say My Name with Destiny's Child in 1999. And she has over 28 awards and over 79 nominations. Most nominated woman in the whole of the Grammy history. Damn! It shows you there's been a lot of great artists, female artists, and she's the most nominated. She has 29 MTV Music Awards, most awarded to date, and the most awarded in BET and Soul Train Awards. Girl cleaning up, madness. That's just madness. Those stats are just mad on its own. Any artist today or from yesteryear would be happy to have those kind of stats attached to their name. But then we move to 2013, where she smashed the record for fastest selling iTunes album of all time. And that album sold 828,773 copies. That was of her self-titled album, the Beyoncé album, of course. And that's almost basically going platinum in a week. Same year, she had the highest grossing female solo tour of the year, which was called Mrs. Carter, the World Tour. Had 6 consecutive number 1 studio albums, which is amazing on its own, but there is someone that has tipped her to that, and that's the one and only Taylor Swift, who has 10 number 1 studio albums, which is insane, because I thought she's been around for 8 years or something like that, maybe 10 years. But even away from music, Beyonce's setting records, as in 2011, she broke the internet when she announced she was expecting a baby. Okay, I'm not into this type of information, but it's still a record in itself. There was 8,868 tweets per second, because she announced she was up the duff. I mean, come on. But it just shows people were heavily invested in her. But in 2017, she broke the internet again, the most liked image on Instagram when she announced she was pregnant with twins. Don't know if you don't remember that. That was the kind of like the Renaissance type of background, quite arty. But she had 5 million likes in 3 hours, and overall there was 11 million likes for that image of her being pregnant with twins. FHO Fresh Hip Hop Opinion, and you're here with your guy Oleezeh, and we're bigging up the B of all B's, Queen B, the Beyoncé, the beehives out there. This is one's for you, look. I just want to get into kind of like the summary, basically. I just want to go into her discography, because Beyoncé has sold a lot of albums. A lot of albums. She has sold a grand total of over 200 million albums altogether, which is insane. And 60 million with Destiny's Child. She has 7 studio albums she released over the span of her career. The first one coming in 2003, and that was Dangerously in Love, the classic first album she did, which sold over 5 million albums. This had the singles Crazy in Love with Jay-Z, which was the first single off that album. She kind of commercially created the twerking, but her twerking was a bit more classy than what we see these days. But that was Dangerously in Love in 2003. 2006 was her sophomore album called B-Day. That sold over 4 million albums, and this had the singles Deja Vu, which is obviously a big song that was featuring Jay-Z as well. It had the monster anthem Irreplaceable, which every girl probably has that on every playlist on their phone. 2008 brought in her third album, I Am Sasha Fierce, which sold over 4 million albums. And I call this the album of absolute monster hits, because this album had, I can't even believe the singles on this album. This had If I Was a Boy, which was ridiculous. That was a ridiculous anthem, like ridiculous in like it was just a massive song. It had All the Single Ladies, which is probably I'd probably say that was her biggest song ever because of the dance and everything. And then Halo. I mean, if an artist had one of those on their album, they'd be like chuffed. I mean, to have 3 of those songs on one album is ridiculous. But yeah, that sold 4 million albums. The fourth album was called 4, and that came out in 2011. That sold 2 million albums, and it had, you could arguably say this is one of her biggest songs. This had Best Thing I Never Had, another girly anthem right there. It had Love on Top, which is actually one of my favorite Beyonce songs. Actually, that was a good record. That came out in 2011. And then the fifth album was her self-titled album that she broke that record on iTunes, and that had Drunk in Love with featuring Jay-Z. This was the album I felt like Beyonce was trying to find herself, because this was the first album I think I ever heard her like swearing on a record. But that came out in 2013, sold 2 million albums, over 2 million albums. Next album came out in 2016, which sold over 1.5, so another platinum album. And that was with singles of Formation and 7-Eleven and Sorry. The last album, which is her current album that's been out, that came out last year, 2022, which was Renaissance. And that had, well, the breakthrough song really is the song that she won the award for, the classic like 90s song that she re-released. That's kind of the reason why she won the award in the Grammys. But besides that, that's all her albums. Beyonce has also had 5 live albums, 3 compilation albums, 5 EPs, and 1 soundtrack, which again is madness. Still delivering after over 20 years of being in the music industry. And you know, you genuinely gotta say, or ask the question anyway, is Beyonce the greatest of all time? You know, she's doing it better than any young buck now. She's doing it better than anyone from the 80s and 70s. Just think about all the legendary artists the Beatles, Michael Jackson, Rolling Stones. I mean, she's doing it. She's just doing it. I mean, only time will tell, and it is a subjective matter, but it is a legit question. Could she be the greatest music artist of all time? This is Fresh Hip Hop Opinion. Beyoncé, salute. Signing out. Peace.